maximize fat loss. 5 calorie burning hacks that actually work. Sean here from Fit Fusion Brotherhood. Most of our discussions about fat loss have to do with energy intake. For good reason. We have much more control over what we put into our body compared to how our body actually breaks it down. But we all know when it comes to fat loss, there is that famous equation, calories in versus calories out. And today's video is going to be all about the calories out. The challenging thing about this particular topic is that we don't have control over everything that determines our calories out. And you're going to see me reference this chart quite a few times throughout the video. And these 5 tips that I have to help you burn more calories all have to do with this. So this chart here is basically how the average person burns calories. But if you're looking for some fat loss hacks, you don't want to be the average person. So we're going to show you how fit people burn calories differently, how you can use this to your advantage, and how you can get into the best shape of your life. So number 5 on the list is going to be the least surprising of them all, and that's going to be exercise. What might be surprising is exactly just how small the percentage of calories burned throughout a given day that is determined through exercise. If you look at this pie chart here, it's actually the smallest percentage. And a lot of people just assume that when it comes to calories out, it's all about exercise, that it determines most of, if not all of the calories we burned, and that couldn't be further than the truth. Now, with that being said, exercise does make a difference, of course. Now, there's so many different types of exercise and benefits of exercise, and I'll get into that later on. And when it comes to calories burned, it's one of the lower pieces of importance when it comes to exercise. So if you're exercising just to burn calories, it's going to be an uphill battle. I've done different videos explaining and attempting to burn 1,000 calories. I did it through running. I did it on the assault bike. And I can tell you it takes a lot of effort to burn calories. And it doesn't take a lot of effort to take in those calories. Okay, so it does make a difference. But if that's your sole strategy to burn calories and lose body fat, unless you're training like an absolute savage, it's not going to work. And even if it does work, it's going to suck. So there's a few reasons for this. Number 1 is how much time are you actually dedicating throughout the day to give to exercise? Probably not a ton, right? 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes. So it's just a small percentage of your day. And as a result, you're not going to burn a ton of calories. And then what also happens with exercise is as we get better, our body becomes more efficient at conserving energy. This is especially true when it comes to cardio, especially through repetitive movements. So jogging, biking, elliptical, anything that you're doing the same movement over and over again. When you first start doing that, your body's going to burn a ton of calories because it's new, it's challenging, and you're very inefficient. And then the better you get at that particular movement, the more efficient your body gets. So you actually burn fewer calories. So if you're going into fat loss with the mentality that you're going to exercise your way through it, you're sadly mistaken. And as you can see here, it takes up the smallest percentage of the pie chart. Now you can bring that number up, but it's still not going to be a make or break thing for you. Number 4 and number 3 actually come from this slice right here called TEF. So TEF stands for the thermic effect of feeding. And this is basically the amount of calories that we burn through digestion. And the type of food that we eat really impacts the amount of calories that we're burning off. And this is why we stress nutrition so much, because it has direct and indirect consequences on your overall energy balance. So we'll start with number 4 first. Number 4 is going to be fiber intake. So the more fiber you take in, the more calories you're going to actually burn off. And you don't do it in the traditional burning off through digestion. Instead, fiber is going to be excreting some of the calories. So basically you poop it out. And this can account for roughly 20% of the calories that you're taking in a very fiber-rich meal. So for example, if you were to have 100 calories of a fiber-rich food versus 100 calories of a food that doesn't have any fiber, maybe just pure carbohydrate, the second one, you might take in 95 to 98% of those calories. But with the fiber-rich food, you're only taking in about 80%. So only 80 calories of the 100 calorie food that you just took in is actually staying in your body, and then you excrete the remaining 20. So this is one thing that I think is going to gain a lot more traction in the future when it comes to fitness, but no one's really talking about the importance of fiber here. Now, it is important to understand that you don't want to go from 0 to 100 right away. You're going to have stomach issues. You're going to have digestive issues. So I would suggest tracking your fiber. For most people, 30 to 40 grams per day is a good idea. If you can get it through your own diet and nutrition, then great. If not, don't feel like you can't supplement. So feel free to get a supplement like a Metamucil, and that's going to help you out as well. So simply increasing your fiber intake is going to help you burn more calories. Number 3, once again, this one comes down to the thermic effect of feeding. And if you've paid attention at all to any sort of fitness or nutrition posts, you might have an idea of what this is going to be already. So number 3 is protein intake. So protein has direct and indirect impacts on your calorie burn. So directly, protein has the highest thermic effect of feeding, meaning your body burns more calories digesting protein than it does digesting carbs or fat. So let's use that same analogy as before. Let's say roughly 20% of your calories are being burned through digestion. You're going to burn more calories with the protein-rich meal than you would with a carbohydrate or fat-rich meal. Now, this also has indirect consequences as well, because as we know, protein fills you up a lot more. So the chances of you actually overeating is going to be much lower compared to fat and protein. So we always aim for roughly 0.8 to 1 grams per pound of body weight for protein. Now, for some people, that's going to be a pretty big jump. And for others, they're already there. So protein is one of those ways. And we can tell the strong correlation between someone's body composition and their protein intake. Like I said, it does have those direct through the calorie burn, through TEF, and indirect through making you feel full, building and maintaining muscle, helping you at the gym. There's just so many different benefits, guys. So if you're slacking out on the protein, make sure you bring it up now because it will help you burn extra calories with no extra effort. Number 2, you didn't think I was going to just skip over that huge chunk of the pie, did you? So this one here is your metabolism. And if you're expecting me to give you some great tips to speed up your metabolism, I'm going to disappoint you. You can't really do a lot to speed up your metabolism, but you can do a lot to really screw it up. Okay, so a lot of this is going to be preventative and proactive. But if there is one thing that you can do to give a slight boost to your metabolism, it's building muscle. And I kind of alluded to this in the beginning part, talking about exercise. So the most beneficial and efficient type of exercise that you can do to improve your overall calorie burn is strength training. Because strength training plus the protein, like I talked about earlier, is going to help build and maintain muscle. Now, if you're in a fat loss phase, if your main goal is to lose fat, unless you're a beginner or unless you have freakishly good genetics, you're probably not going to be able to build muscle simultaneously. So what you're trying to do here is you're trying to minimize the amount of muscle that you lose. Because like I said, even though you can't really boost your metabolism, you can bring it down. And you got to realize that anytime you're looking to lose weight or drop body fat, your metabolism will slow down. And there's nothing you can really do about this. So your goal is to minimize that. And we minimize that by trying to maintain as much muscle as we have. Because people who have more muscle tend to have a higher basal metabolic rate. So we always like to attribute metabolism as this genetic thing that so many people are either lucky or unlucky. But typically people who have a quote unquote slow metabolism, it's either not true at all or it's self-inflicted. And it's self-inflicted by losing muscle. It's self-inflicted by yo-yo dieting. So gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight over and over again. And it's self-inflicted by just losing a ton of weight really, really fast. So number 2 here, in order to get that piece of the pie to really maximize to work to your advantage, is to make sure that number doesn't shrink. And you do that by prioritizing muscle. And what might be surprising is the fitter the person, the less reliant they are on metabolism. So if you actually start implementing these 5 tips that I'm giving you, you'll notice that your calorie burn is much more evenly distributed with these things. Whereas the person who doesn't incorporate these is going to be very reliant on the metabolism, which ironically is the one thing that they're saying is holding them back. Okay, so metabolism makes up a lot of that calorie burn. Just remember, there's a lot of your metabolism that you can't control, but the one thing that you can is your strength and your muscle. So be sure to prioritize that. And then the number 1 tip to burn more calories is this slice of the pie right here called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And NEAT is basically the amount of calories that you're burning off through movement that doesn't include exercise. And you'll notice this piece of the pie is much higher than the exercise piece of the pie. Yet everyone wants to think about exercise as the best way to burn calories, but you burn way more calories throughout the day just moving around. Now you'll notice this if you have any friends or family members, or maybe yourself who works a blue collar job, moving around a lot. The amount of exercise and the amount of food that you get to have is a lot more, you have a lot more wiggle room that way to stay lean and be able to reach your fitness goals because you're so much more active. You're moving around a lot and this burns a ton of calories. So the person who doesn't necessarily hit the gym all the time, but has a very active day-to-day life is much more likely to burn a ton more calories than the person who's hitting the gym every single day, but works an office job. So what can you do about this? If you already don't have a blue collar job, if you're at that office all day, you're going to want to track your steps because you're likely moving a lot less than you think. And this slice of the pie is going to be a lot smaller than it can be. And this is probably the best way to leverage the amount of calories that you burn and really get through that plateau. I've seen it over and over and over again. People who they have their nutrition dialed in, everything else is great, they're working out, but now they start moving more and all of a sudden that plateau, they just break through. Okay, so a lot of the times, the biggest difference between fit people and someone who might not be fit outside of nutrition is this right here, the amount of calories that you burn through daily movement. So this one, which is kind of the opposite of the last one I was talking about, like metabolism, the more fit you are, the bigger the piece of pie is going to look for this particular segment here. And the metabolism one shrinks down, relatively speaking. Okay, so if you're really looking to leverage the amount of calories you're burning, the best news about this as well is you can do it anytime, anywhere. You can multitask, you can do work calls, you can do it on the treadmill if the weather's bad, and it doesn't take a negative toll on your body. So it's not hard on the nervous system, it's not gonna beat your muscles up, it's not gonna beat your joints up, just get moving. Okay, so that's the number one tip to burn more calories. So to wrap things up here, there are a lot of things outside of your control when talking about the amount of calories that you're burning, but I just laid out 5 things that you absolutely can control. And chances are there's at least one, if not more, that you're not really tapping into. So if you're struggling to get to that next level, try out these things, make them work for you. If you're already doing these things, it's probably your diet. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It would mean a lot if you would like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next one.